4 more girls have been released by the Hamas back into Israel. The first thing I want to stress right now, and we're going to be talking about this as we go along, this is not a hostage release deal. This is not a ceasefire deal. This is a ransom, basically a ransom of young men, women that have been kidnapped and are being returned to their loved ones, but only after their loved ones have paid a terrible price. And Israel is paying a terrible price right now. And let's talk about what it is. This is DaviD TaL. This is the Balagan Connection. Today we're going to be talking about hostages, how that plays in, how that kind of connects to the story in Israel, and how that means or how that feels for Israelis. So let's get going. And the first thing I need to do, and I hope I'm not going to break up on this, is that as part of the hostage deal, we have the names of the 33 hostages that are going to be released in the first phase. And until now, the Hamas has not told us which ones are alive or dead. Turns out that out of the 33 hostages that are going to be released on the first phase of this arrangement, 8 of them were dead. And that includes the 2 BBUS children who were kidnapped when they were 8 months old and 3 years old. And right now, we're realizing that they're not going to be returned alive, but they're... I can't. And Israel is devastated. Israel is devastated. So yes, we're joyous. Yes, we've got 4 hostages back, and this week a few more. But the price has been devastating. A couple of words about what's happening. The 33 hostages are going to be returned to Israel over a 6-week period, and this is already the second or the third round. In return for getting our hostages back, we are going to do a couple of things that are very hard for us. One, we are going to give bad people, more than 1,000 terrorist detainees and just people who have Israeli blood on their hands are going to be released to go back into Gaza. We will be pulling out of areas in Gaza, and we will be allowing the people in Gaza to move back from the southern part of Gaza, where most of them were concentrated during the fighting, to move back into the northern part of Gaza, to cross over the barricade or the corridor that we've created between the southern part of Gaza and the northern part of Gaza, and to return to their homes in the northern part of Gaza. We have created a buffer zone, probably about a half a mile wide along the borders with Gaza. Israel is going to remain there. Israel is going to remain in the Netzarim corridor in the middle and the Philadelphia corridor at the end, and that's part of what's going to be determined in the final agreement. But this stage now means that they will be able to return to their homes in the northern part, and as of now, there's no fighting going on. The foreign press likes to stress the fact that huge amounts of aid and trucks and food have been going in. But the thing is, no more than has been going in the past. The people in Gaza are not suffering from malnutrition. This is part of the I'm going to say the media war that has been going on. And this is the basis of the agreement that should be the first stage in the negotiation of a second stage, which will return more of the Israeli hostages and give more of the Palestinian terrorists back. And then a third stage will be the finalization of the whole situation in Gaza. And nobody knows yet how to deal with that. The fact that this hostage deal is even going through right now is because of pressure that President Trump has put on Israel on one side, but on the supporters of Hamas on the other side. And that is what has allowed this deal to go in. There are still 66 more hostages, 66 more Israelis being held in the dungeons in Gaza. We're realizing now that the way that they were kept was inhumane. I mean, one of the girls that came out from the last hostage release was talking about being kept underground in the tunnel with no sunlight in total darkness for 8 months. Now, I don't know if you know, but that's solitary confinement. That is the most terrible punishment, that you punish a criminal. And she was in that situation. They didn't get correct medical attention. One of the girls that came out in one of the rounds actually had two of her fingers shot off in when she was taken hostage, and she's not been treated. Just got treated back. This has become a symbol for us of determination and steadfastness. And the stories about both the way they were treated and how they were treated have got all of Israel turning upside down. The world doesn't care. The world doesn't think. The world doesn't take into consideration what has happened to these young women. The Me Too movement doesn't talk about the fact that they were sexually desecrated. The support for women doesn't even connect to that. The only thing that the world can talk about is the pictures of them in uniform. They weren't soldiers when they were taken, but the Hamas put them in uniform, and parade them as soldiers, and the Hamas gave them little gift bags to bring home with them back to Israel in a terrible, terrible, I don't know how to say it, demonic act of just humiliation, which is another part of what we're doing and what we're dealing with. The situation in Gaza right now is basically Hamas is moving back into the areas that were taken or that they had lost in the past, areas that they had actually had control of. And it looks like, according to everything that I understand, that the Hamas is going to stay in power at the end of this cycle. We don't know yet what is going to bring. They came out of the holes, they came out of their tunnels, they came out of their bunkers, and when the last group of girls was released, you see hundreds of Hamas in uniform, which you haven't seen until now, with weapons, with bandanas, showing off their strength. The Hamas has not been finished off, and the support for the Hamas in Gaza has not been finished off. So the Gaza issue is still in place. So that brings us to talking about the final stage or the intermediate stage. And the negotiation is going on right now, but it's not really going to work. And it doesn't take a great genius to realize that Hamas has no real reason to finish this off. I mean, as far as they're concerned, if they can stand on top of the rubble and go like this, it's a victory for them. They don't need to win, they need to survive. And if they can survive, they will be seen as the saviors of the Muslim world. They're the only ones that have stood up to Israel. And Israel is willing to allow them this scene of victory only because we want our people back. So the thing is this, if you understand that dynamic, then what initiative or what incentive do they have to return the rest of the hostages? Because the minute they return all of the hostages, nothing's going to keep Israel back. And with the Trump administration in place, there's no reason why the United States would keep them back. So we believe that there's a good chance that these 33 hostages that we're getting, dead or alive, might be the last ones that we're going to be getting. And this is part of what is tearing this nation apart. But I want to tell you, I'm in LA. I'm going to be going back to Israel in March, mid-March. But what I'm trying to say is this. Watching all of this happening from this side, watching these Israeli girls being paraded like this, watching the press in some cases in the United States saying, what do you want? These are hostages that are being released. This is a good ceasefire for the situation in Gaza. This is a step towards peace. Watching all of this makes my blood boil. And again, what I would like to do, and this is what I think I can do more than anything, anybody else, is give you an Israeli perspective on this. And what you need to understand that for us as Israelis, this is personal. This is downright as personal as you can get. This is not an event that is being played on CNN. This is not an event that has been played. This is not something that we're going to write books about. This is not something that we're going to make movies about. This is up close and very, very personal. Now, I know I'm talking to the people who are connected to this part of the side, but I want to say, and this is me sharing what's been going on in my heart for the last couple of weeks. I want to say that no matter how much I have support of the people here, and how much I have love of Christians, God-fearing, Jewish-loving, Israel-supporting Christians here, I have this feeling that nobody can really understand. Because this is similar to when you lose a loved one and people come to support you and to hug you, but nobody really understands the pain of what you are going through. And I think for us as Israelis, there's something similar to this is a special kind of pain that we don't think a lot of people can really click into in a deeper way. For me, it's very personal. It's personal as an officer and as somebody who's been on the front line in Israel, fighting the wars in Israel, training, defending. I've put my life on the line many times. I've almost been killed many times, and I've been in the thick of the battle many times. In order for something like this not to happen, watching these girls being paraded like trophies on CNN, I feel like a failure. I feel like everything that I am and everything that I represented has failed these young girls. And as a result of this, their families, and as an extension of that, the rest of Israel. It is a feeling of failure. And to me, just seeing even this shameful arrangement that we have accepted because their lives are more important than our pride is hard to watch. I feel like we failed in defending them. I feel like we failed in preparing this. And I feel even, and again, I got to be careful, but we fought this war in order to bring them back, and we haven't really achieved that the way we wanted to achieve that. And we're going to have to live with that. And I'm going to have to live with that. My officer sense, my military pride, all of this is going to have to live with this sense that we did not defend the people that we loved and enough in order for this not to happen. It's personal as an Israeli. What happened impacted me directly as an Israeli. I was sitting on the porch when I heard it happen. And the moment it happened, my career was wiped away. Our economy has completely changed. The way we think has completely changed. As an Israeli, this is deeply personal for each and every one of us. My mom has to sleep next to the bomb shelter to make sure that she can get to the bomb shelter in time. My friends are calling me from the States and saying, wait a minute, we hear that Israel is carpet bombing Gaza. I'm having to explain to people that I know that we're not genociders and baby killers. Our prestige, our reputation, our sense of pride has all been taken away from us as Israelis. And I have to say, I feel this very, very personally in what's going on. Today's Holocaust Memorial Day. 80 years ago today, the camp in Auschwitz was released by the American forces, and this is we have our own day in Israel, but this is the day where we commemorate the Holocaust and the Holocaust Memorial Day on an international scale. So there's Holocaust memorial ceremonies in different places, including in Auschwitz and other places. What became personal for me on the 7th of October, and since, by the way, not only on the 7th of October, is that I'm a Jew. I thought I was an Israeli. I thought there was a difference between the Israeli that I was and the Jews that we hear about and read about all our lives. I thought there was a difference between me and the rest of the Jews who have been persecuted and trampled and stepped on and ridiculed and everything that you know about persecution of the Jews. And I personally connected to my Judaism. Not the religious part. I can go through the dynamic, but even I got closer to my religious part, but definitely to my nationality and my racial heritage as a Jew. And I have to tell you, it's scary. I remember growing up as a young Israeli and later on as an officer and as a proud Israeli officer and everything that I am and everything that I've represented on the bus and tours all through the years. And I never really kind of felt myself connected to the Jews of the world that have suffered the brunt of persecution, ridicule, and downright murder in many cases just for the fact that they were Jewish. I'm also deeply disappointed in some of the people from my own people who have bought into the narrative. Some of the Jews living in the safety and the wealth of the Western world who have actually bought into the narrative that somehow we don't deserve to live in Israel or somehow we should be held to a different moral standard than the rest of the world, which is true, but we are. I'm personally affected by the anti-Semitism that I see running rampant through universities and other places actually in this world, and how Jew hatred has become a part of the political narrative in places none other than the United States. I'm personally impacted by that. And I think this is something that not a lot of people really understand, that for the Jews, this is something that actually is in their DNA, that we kind of tended to forget, and now we're being reminded who we actually are. But I want to say, especially after getting the news about the BBUS babies, these cute little red-headed babies who were taken into Gaza, and I take it personally as a father. There's nothing that scares me more. There's nothing that turns my stomach more. There's nothing that enrages me more. There's nothing that saddens me more than what's happened to those young babies, and the fact that I, as an Israeli, as a Jew, as a father, as a soldier, as everything that I am, and my whole country, and in extension to that, and everything that we are, couldn't make sure that didn't happen. That is deep in what's going on with Israelis today. And I thought I needed to share this because I hear the discourse and I hear the discussion, and even I feel I don't even want to talk about it because people are not really going to understand. I don't want to talk about it because it's very personal for me. I don't want to talk about it because I get so distraught and so emotional about it. But I thought it was important for you to understand that for us, what's happening with the hostages and all of this, with what we're being accused of and what we're being called and what our enemies are doing and what our friends are watching and all of this. And I'm saying, until you've been there, you can't really understand. And this is something that I think was important to share with you because I don't think anybody else can share this. And I can't help but say two things. I don't know who of you have lost loved ones or dealt with grief or dealt with terrible situations like this in the past, and how do you get through this? And there's two things. One, yes, the support of the people who love us is really important. And if you hear, if you know, if you're connected to anybody Jewish or anybody Israeli, please reach out. Reach out and say, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here to help and support you. Reach out and say, even if you don't really understand it, there's somebody named Jesus who used to live there, who still is part of your story, that loves you very much. Reach out to them and say, your enemies are going to fall, whether they know it or not, whether you know it or not. I'm telling you, based on what I know, your enemies are going to fall in the end, and you will be able to stand up straight again. That's what I need you to reach out to Israelis. That's what I need you to reach out to Jews right now and reconnect to that. And I'm kind of thinking about, how do you deal with evil? How do you deal with the terrible things that are happening? And one of the things that God laid on my heart was a psalm that was written by another guy named David, which I find fascinating. And it was written after David found out about something that terrible that had happened. King Saul had given the command to somebody really, really bad, who wanted to achieve something in Saul's kingdom, and Saul told him to take a sword and kill the servants and the priests of God. And after, his name was Doeg, he was from a place called Edom. He was a Jordanian. He was an Arab, basically. And Doeg the Edomite had gone to Saul and says bad things about David. And David writes Psalm 52 after this event. And here is what he says. And I want you to listen to this carefully, because it conveys what I feel more than anything else. It goes like this. Why do you boast of hero? He's talking about Doeg the Edomite, or the enemy. He says, why do you boast of hero, you mighty? Why do you boast of evil, you mighty hero? I mean, why are you making YouTube videos about the evil that you've done? You think you're a great hero? Why do you boast all day long, you who are a disgrace in the eyes of God? You who practice deceit. Your tongue plots destruction like it is a sharpened razor. You love evil rather than good. You love falsehood rather than speaking the truth. And I can't help but say, Hamas, this is what Hamas is doing. You love every harmful word, you deceitful tongue. Surely God will bring you down to everlasting ruin. He will snatch you up and he will pluck you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous will see and fear, and they will laugh at you, saying, here now is the man who did not make God his stronghold, but trusted his great wealth and grew strong by destroying others. And I'm saying, this is so what our enemy has done to us. But I, my people, who we are and what we are like an olive tree flourishing in the house of God. I trust in God's unfailing love forever and ever and ever. For what you have done, you, God, for what you have done, I will always praise you in the presence of your faithful people, and I will hope in your name I will hope in your name, for your name is good. And in this sense of rage, and this sense of anguish, and this sense of feeling that I have been wronged, there's nothing I can do but hope in your name, for your name is good. If you know anybody that is suffering from what's happening in Israel, send them Psalm 52. And if you don't know the God that I'm talking about, please reach out here at the end of this video, and we can connect to this and explain to this. And what I want to say is, as this is Israeli, I'm going to say, thank you. Thank you, the God of David, the God of Abraham, Isaac, the God of Yeshua. Thank you that I can hope in your name, for your name is good. And that's all I can actually hope for right now. This is DaviD TaL. This is a Balagan Connection. If you do want to connect to what's going on in Israel in a more, organized way, we're part of an organization called Gon Springs. There's a logo, there's a link downstairs, or you can go to gihonsprings.com and connect to us through a ministry of Jeff and Karen Johnson from Downey, who are supporting Israel, supporting soldiers, actually with equipment, actually with different ways of support. We're supporting Christian ministries who support believing soldiers in Israel. We're supporting pro-life ministries. We're supporting widows of the fallen in the fighting in Israel. So if you want to do any of that, please connect to Gon Springs down here. If you want to support me and Christy, because like I said, we're still looking for tourists, although it seems that we will be back in Israel in March. So I will be doing a video, how to say, event, if you want to call it, of the tour in March, and touring a couple of sites. If there's anything you want me to connect to in Israel, put it down in the comments today, down here, because I will connect to that. And what I need you to do is just pray for us. Pray for Israel. Pray for the Jews. Pray for the Israelis. Pray for what's going to be going on. Pray for me and Christy and the rest of the family here. This is DaviD TaL. This is the Balagan Connection. Hope to see you soon.